Lucamus Prime here, so it's time for the next episode of a movie that didn't need a sequel. And in today's video, it's going to be for another horror movie, which in my opinion did not need sequels, and to me is the end of a horror trilogy that I like to pretend is a trilogy. And that film, of course, is actually a third installment, ironically a sequel, which I think does not need sequels, which is none other than 1992's HellRaiser 3, Hell on Earth. So, you guys are probably going to ask me, what are my thoughts on the first two films of the franchise first? Well, the first movie, HellRaiser, is my personal favourite of the franchise. I regard it as one of the best horror films I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely an amazing film from start to finish, with amazing practical effects and great horror for its time. And if you guys are also going to be guessing by my figure on my desk with me, my favourite character in the franchise is most definitely Pinhead, and easily my favourite role of Doug Bradley, who played him in the films. And I also saw from the second movie, Hellbound Hellraiser 2, is a very good sequel to the first movie. The first one, to me, was the best one, but I think the second one was really good too. But this film, though, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, to me, is the best of the sequels that I've seen. Because I definitely think it was almost on the same level of greatness as the first movie, in terms of the horror and the story, and Pinhead being such a great villain. It was definitely a lot of fun for me to see, and I really enjoyed Hellraiser 3 a lot. And I also thought the film had a great ending too, which as far as I'm concerned is the end of the Hellraiser franchise, because at the end of the movie, of course, Pinhead ensnares the main character in machinery and prepares to transform her into a Cenobite, but then the spirit of his human counterpart, Captain Elliot Spencer, however, confronts Pinhead in limbo and forcibly fuses himself into Pinhead, and then the character Joey breaks free and uses the puzzle box, which is transformed into a dagger, and stabs Pinhead in the heart, and that sends him back to hell. And then with Pinhead's humanity restored, the box returns Joy back to Earth. She then buries it in a pool of concrete at the construction site, and later the finished product of the same site is revealed, a building whose interior design is identical to a box, coincidentally. And right there, I did not see any signs of sequel baiting whatsoever, so as far as I'm concerned, Hellraiser 3 to me is the end of Hellraiser. I don't think we did a really good job wrapping things up, and the post, of course, even has a quote which of course hints towards the end of things to come, because it says, "What started in hell will end on Earth." And the clue, of course, is end. So right there, I can definitely see Hellraiser 3 as the end of Hellraiser franchise. Unfortunately, though, however, 4 years later, we got a fourth movie, which was also the last one to be released in the cinemas, and that was, unfortunately, HellRaiser Bloodline, which I saw after checking out the third movie, and I absolutely hated it. I thought it was terrible. Like, I think it just completely annihilated such a great trilogy right there. Like, first of all, it brings back Pinhead and makes his defeat pointless, which is a very bad cliche which I really hate. And also as well, why did it turn into a sci-fi movie? It's supposed to be a horror franchise, not sci-fi. So that made me really angry. I hated what they did with this movie. And I think the characters I could not care about whatsoever. They were just annoying to sit through, just torture to watch. Like, I don't know what happened at all with it. Like, I just thought it was terrible. And I think it's also laughable how they call this movie on the poster a non-stop nightmare. Like, not a nightmare in a horror way, a nightmare in a cringe way because of how cringe the film is. I think it's terrible. Because literally, in my opinion, the only good thing about this film for me was Doug Bradley as Pinhead, and that was it, really. Like, he was the only thing I liked about Bloodline, and that was it. Everything else sucked, in my opinion. Like, goodness me, it was so bad. But however, despite that, we did somehow get another movie released, and this was the first one to be released in the direct-to-video movies of the franchise. And that, of course, was none other than Hellraiser Inferno, which was also, as well, unfortunately, directed by Scott Derrickson, who I like for directing other movies. But unfortunately, this film, in my opinion, was trash. Just like Bloodline, in my opinion. Like, it was absolute garbage, in my opinion, and just like Bloodline, though, the only redeeming quality I have with the movie is Doug Bradley as Pinhead, and that's it. Everything else, in my opinion, sucked. And I sadly regard it as my least favourite film I've seen from Scott Derrickson, unfortunately, which breaks my heart. And then, so Inferno, in my opinion, was a terrible movie. But despite this, however, we got what is, in my opinion, the worst Hellraiser movie I've ever seen. which is 2002's HellRaiser Hellseeker. Oh my god. Like, this would have to be, to me, the worst of the worst when it comes to HellRaiser films. Because, in my opinion, there was absolutely nothing good about this movie. Nothing whatsoever. And yes, guys, I'm including Pinhead because not even he could save a movie, in my opinion. Because Doug Bradley had an absolutely awful script in this movie. It was just so insufferable to listen to. And they really ruined the character a lot. Like, this film was complete trash from start to finish. And it has one of the dumbest plot twists I've ever seen in my life at the end of the movie. I'm not going to spoil it if any of you guys have not seen it, but my recommendation to this franchise is please stick to a trilogy, because this film was just absolutely trash in my opinion. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, it was absolutely horrendous in my opinion. I couldn't believe what the hell I was watching. It was absolute garbage. Oh my goodness, it was just terrible in my opinion. Like, it was an absolute abomination from start to finish, and nothing in my opinion could save the movie. And yes, that includes Pinhead because of the awful script he had. Like, goodness me. And he was also weighted to him, I might also add, because he barely appeared in the film. And then also as well, after this, however, 3 years later, we got another film released in 2005, which of course was HellRaiser Deader. Which was once again trash, but thankfully not as abominable as Hellseeker, I'll say that. But still, in my opinion, not good at all. And I really didn't like it. I thought it was terrible too. But at least Pinhead had more to do in it than he did in Hellseeker, I'll say that. But he was still heavily wasted, which I really hated. And then, after this, however, in the same year actually, we got another film. And when I was watching these films, because I thought the franchise was going nowhere with these sequels, because they weren't any good in my opinion compared to the first two films, to sequels to the first movie, I made a decision to stop watching the films with the film Hellraiser Hellworld, because it's the last one to star Doug as Pinhead, and also because it stars an actor who I promised I'd support by watching all of his films, old and new, and that's Henry Cavill, because he's in this film at one of his early roles as a character called Mike. And it also stars Lance Henriksen, who I consider a great actor, who's always a pleasure to watch. So I watched this film mainly for Doug Bradley, Henry Cavill, and Lance Henriksen. And while I think Hellraiser Hellworld is not a good film by any means, I think it's probably the most tolerable of the films I've seen since Hellraiser 3, in my opinion. Because while I think the films after Hellraiser 3 were trash, in my opinion, this one, while it wasn't good in my opinion, was more tolerable. Mainly because of those three actors. They, in my opinion, were the best part of the movie. And it's just a shame, really, that they weren't in a good film, because it could have been so much better, in my opinion. Like, what I think was so dumb about Hellworld was how it turned into, like a sci-fi film as well, where basically, of course, it's revealed, of course, but apparently, Hellraiser is now a computer game called Hellworld, which is just so dumb, in my opinion. And also the film suffered similar problems to other bad sequels, such as it got boring and not much horror. But I will say that some of the kills were brutal, I'll give it that at least, but still, in my opinion, wasn't a good movie. And that's why I stopped watching the films, because personally, I don't think it feels right to me how there's Hellraiser films after this which don't feature Doug as Pinhead, to be honest. Because in my opinion, you can't do Hellraiser without Doug Bradley. Because in my opinion, he was a perfect casting as Pinhead, and in my opinion, no one could play a role better than him. So I just didn't see a point in continuing anymore, because the franchise to me was going nowhere. I just didn't care anymore. And I've not even heard good things about what came after Hellworld anyway, so yeah, it looks like I dodged a bullet. So my answer to being asked to watch the films after Hellworld is, pun intended, hell no. Because I don't see any reason why I should now. Because Hellseeker in particular killed interest out of it, wanting to continue. That's why I started Hellworld, so I could see Henry Cavill in a film and support him, you know. And that's how it was, really, for me. But as far as I'm concerned, guys, Hellraiser to me is only a trilogy. No more, no less, as far as I'm concerned. So I do have the first movie as a Blu-ray Steelbook somewhere in one of my boxes, but I'm hoping to one day get the second and third films on Blu-ray as well, because I think they're both great films to watch, and I'll definitely consider rewatching those, absolutely. And I will one day post positive reviews for the first three films, and however, I will post trash talks for what came after that I've seen, but I don't plan to post a ranking video for films anytime soon, because obviously, of course, I've stopped watching films I've given up because I've had enough. Because after seeing these bad films, I don't want to see any more, so I'm done. And as far as I'm concerned, HellRaiser to me is a trilogy. That's my opinion. So, anyway guys, this was me covering why, in my opinion, HellRaiser 3 is an example of a horror film that did not need sequels, and to me it is the end of what should have been a trilogy. So, you know the drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to tell us in the comments what you guys think of HellRaiser 3. Do you need sequels or not? Or comment below what you think. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe to comment in the future. And I'll see you all later.